is brought to you by Head Start Basketball.
Hey, Hoopheads, find your team's dream shooting machine this holiday season during Dr. Dish Basketball's December end-of-year super sale. From now until December 31st, you can unlock the biggest deal of the year. Buy one Dr. Dish CT Plus, get one for $2,000. This offer is only valid while supplies last, so hurry to secure your machines while you can. Learn more at drdishbasketball.com and follow their incredible content at Dr. Dish B-Ball on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. Mention the Hoopheads podcast and save an extra $300 on the Dr. Dish Rebel, All-Star, and CT models. Those are some great deals, Hoopheads. Get your Dr. Dish shooting machine today.
This is Pete Gash, men's assistant basketball coach at the University of Maine, and you're listening to Hoopheads Podcast.
Prepare like the pros with the all-new Fast Draw and Fast Scout. Fast Draw has been the #1 play diagramming software for coaches for years. You'll quickly see why Fast Model Sports has the most compelling and intuitive basketball software out there. For a limited time, Fast Model is offering Hoopheads listeners 15% off Fast Draw and Fast Scout. Just use the code HHP15 at checkout to grab your discount, and you'll be on your way to more efficient game prep and improved communication with your team. Fast Model also has new coaching content every week on its blog, plus play and drill diagrams on its play bank. Check out the links in the show notes for more. Fast Model Sports is the best in basketball. Hello and welcome to the Hoopheads Podcast. It's Mike Klinzing here with my co-host Jason Suckle tonight. And we are jumping on for triple-double number 15. And this is the first triple-double, though, with a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. Wait, aren't you in the Straws Hall of Fame, Mike?
I guess that's true. That is true, I guess. So
maybe I
misspoke.
Short.
I mean, it's a big first one.
Rob's is a little bit bigger than the Straws Hall of Fame.
No, I mean, I don't know. The Straws Hall, I don't know what that means, but I would like to be a part of that.
It's his high school Hall of Fame.
Oh, well, that's something.
That's something.
Are you in the Kent State Hall of Fame, Mike?
I am not. I don't think I'm going to make the Kent State Hall of Fame. I think my time. Maybe there's a veterans committee that I can get one of my friends on or something.
Maybe you broke your record last year, and your record would have 2 years ago. Your record would have been like 25 years old. Maybe you could be in the Kent State Hall of Fame. Like,
it's been all right. It lasted a long. It lasted way longer than I had any right to hold any records. Let's put it that way. So we'll leave it there.
Back to this lesson at hand. Sorry, I apologize.
All right. So first of all, Rob, welcome and congratulations on that honor. It's again. I think that obviously nobody goes into their career thinking that at some point they'd like to make any Hall of Fame, but clearly something that recognizes the sustained success that you've been able to have at Bolingbrook.
Yeah. I jokingly say to people, it's mostly because I'm old and I've been doing this a long time. But in actuality, I've been the coach at Bolingbrook High School for 17 years. And so that's not a huge eternity of time, I guess. And so, obviously having really, really good players and having really, really good assistants and having really, really supportive admin and community, all of that, makes what I do, which in actuality, I don't think is as much as people think, makes what I do a lot easier. And I've said this before to anybody that would listen, but Bolingbrook High School boys basketball is kind of like a big, aircraft carrier with a lot of stuff going on. And I'm just the little rudder on the back that hopefully nobody notices, right? But if the little rudder in the back that's giving it direction isn't paying attention to what everything is doing, that big aircraft carrier is going to run ashore and bad things are going to happen. So, I liken it to that. But truth be known, it's mostly because we've had really good players and I've had really great assistant coaches. And, that's been the best part about it, because the relationships that I've been able to forge over these years and the outpouring of, former players that either saw it on social media or heard from another player and then contacted me, that is, you know, I got a little emotional sometimes, with how many of the kids have contacted me and former players. And then on top of that, then we were preseason number one. And so then a lot of players were, contacting me about that. And so it's just great to hear from them and great to have them still be a part of it. And they're obviously a huge part of it because none of it would be possible without them.
Rob, I want you to know too how much it meant to me that I was the first retweet that you had. I want you to know that I just wrote that after I saw it, and then you retweeted me, and then I looked and I saw that I was the first retweet, and I was like,
now,
why is he retweeting me first?
I did it. Now, in my defense of you being the first one,
it was an accidental retweet. It was an accident.
Well, no, when something like this happened, which something like a Hall of Fame doesn't really happen all the time, but I always attempt to respond to every single person, not necessarily in the order that they got in, but maybe that was the first one I saw when I started doing that or whatever. So I try to respond to every single person as best I can. I'm sure I've forgotten a few, and I'm sure I overlooked some, but I would never overlook you, Jason.
Oh,
ever.
Well, listen, you just wanted me to. You just thought that if you didn't retweet me, I wouldn't show up for this episode. But you probably thought.
Yes,
so.
that is true. That is true. So,
all right. Well, Rob, the next question I'm going to ask is one that you've probably already answered here for people. But when you think back to the start of your run at Bolingbrook and you look at the totality of what you've been able to accomplish, I'm going to kind of put words in your mouth here, but I'm guessing that you're going to say that the most important part of what you've been able to do and the biggest thing that you attribute your success to starts with the relationships, both the relationships with your kids, with your coaching staff, with the community, with the school administration, all those things. Am I accurate in saying that that's probably where you would place the biggest amount of, I don't know what the right word is, but with in terms of what's been most important, the relationship piece of it, I'm guessing is probably the most important to you.
100%, it's the most important thing, and it's really the only thing that matters. The wins and the Hall of Fames and the state tournaments and the USA basketball assignments and the stuff that kind of happens because of the relationships, right? And so obviously you have to have some sort of acumen to deal with everything that you have to deal with when you're a head coach at this level. And I think people sometimes underestimate that. We play on Friday, but today the last thing on my mind was, what are we going to do at practice? The things that were on the forefront of my mind are our kids, getting prepared for finals? Are our kids healthy? Are our kids, fresh? All of those things that people don't necessarily realize when they come to see us play on Friday night. So, those things happen because you have good relationships with your players, and not everything is rosy all the time. I certainly don't want to come across like, it's perfection at Bolingbrook High School, because it's certainly not. But we try to make it a do-it-all place. You have to do it all at our place. You have to, be a good student. You have to be, strong in the community, and then you have to perform when it's your time to perform on the court. And that's part of it too. And so, all of those things come from the relationships that you're able to build. And so, when the Coaches Association contacted me about the Hall of Fame, I wasn't even aware. I knew I was close, but I wasn't even aware that I was over 400 wins and all of the things that I guess that they count or check boxes off. I don't know what the criteria really is, but and to go in while I'm still coaching and while I'm still, active and while we still have a very strong program, at this particular time, it is refreshing as well. And so, I came to Bolingbrook for a reason, and they brought me here for a reason. And it wasn't because the basketball had been, phenomenal before I got here. So, they had always had talent. When I say they, before I got here, there's always talent. But I think we have been able to, kind of cultivate it and fertilize it and, make it grow in a way that is beyond, my comprehension for sure. When I got here, the last thing I was thinking about was, hey, am I going to be in the Hall of Fame and have 400 plus wins? And, I just don't think like that. And so, to have this happen and, to be honored by a group of what is really your peers, and guys that have coached and they know what it's like, is refreshing and humbling all at once. And sometimes it's hard for me to talk about myself, but I'm a little bit forced to do it in these situations. But I'm just I say this as well. I gave the, aircraft carrier analogy. I'm just a small spoke in a big wheel. That's Bolingbrook boys basketball. And, from our booster club and the way they support us and all of the things that go with, I'm just proud to be the coach at Bolingbrook High School.
How much do you know about the process for being selected? So you hinted at the 400 victories. I like who votes? What's the process? How much do you know about the process? I don't
really know. I got contacted via email several months ago saying my name was getting put forth some group. I'm assuming it's the board of the Coaches Association. And so at that point, I knew there was a chance, but then at that point, I wasn't like running around saying, hey, this could happen. And then I got the official letter, I don't know, 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago, something like that, that said, you're in the class of 2025. So,
how many people are in that class?
I'm not sure about that either. You could see how concerned I am about all of this. I don't know. I've heard a couple of the names, but I haven't been able to confirm, and I'm not gonna you're not gonna seek it out yeah. So at any rate, I'm just thrilled to be, in the discussion or in the esteemed group. And, we, like I tell our players all the time, yeah, that's all fun and everything's great, but you got a job to do, and you got this stuff because you did your job. So you need to continue to do your job. And my job is to be the coach at Bolingbrook High School. And so, every day at practice, every day at school, that's where my focus is.
Is there anybody in the Hall of Fame that you know of, or who that's in the Hall of Fame would you most like to sit down and have dinner with? If there's a name, if there's somebody that you've seen in your career that you'd like to pick their brain or just have a conversation with?
Well, I would say nothing against the Illinois coaches, but my high school coach, Coach Jerry Slikas, was in the Iowa Basketball Coaches Association Hall of Fame, and he won, I think, 400, 500 games, something like that. And so he would be my number one choice. He, of course, for the regular listeners, know that he's passed. And he would be my number one choice. He was just a great mentor of mine. And then, of course, Coach Showalter is in, every Hall of Fame. And one day I know he'll be in the Naismith Hall of Fame, like the biggest Hall of Fame that there is for basketball. And, obviously my relationship with him, helped me become who I am, not only as a coach, but as a person as well. And so those two guys would be the guys that I would pick. But luckily, I still I talked to Show. In fact, I talked to him today. So, all of those things and that relationship is still, forefront on my mind for sure.
You know when the banquet is?
I think it's in May. My wife said it's May 3rd. I think she looked over all the.
That's my dad's birthday. That's a good day.
Yeah, that's why they're having. I think it's May 3rd. She put on our calendar. I think she read the literature that we got from the IBCA a little bit more careful than I did. So, I think it's May 3rd. So
do they hold that in Chicago, or where do they hold that at?
It's actually at Illinois State. So in Normal. And they have it at Redbird Arena, and it's a pretty nice deal. I've been coach of the year a couple of times and been down for the event, but obviously I've never been down there at the head table like I will be this time. So, that'll be a different experience.
Absolutely. And again, Rob, just from Jason and I, a sincere congratulations for that honor. And I know that sometimes it's hard to really think about and appreciate that in the moment as it's happening. And I think that it's something that, again, as your career goes along, you'll continue to be able to just look back upon that and say, wow, that's something that, again, as you mentioned earlier, just being recognized by your peers and by the committee that does the voting. I think that's an honor. I always feel like the Hall of Fame is something that means more as you go along. And
yeah.
You don't always, in the moment as it happens, especially for you who isn't retired and is still coaching, have a tremendous amount of success. You're far more focused on what your team is doing right now and what it takes to continue to sustain that success. And there'll be a point it's in the future where you're going to look back and I think appreciate this even more than you do in the moment. But again, from Jason and I, congratulations on that. It's a tremendous honor that not everybody who coaches high school basketball obviously gets an opportunity to be inducted into a Hall of Fame at that level. So congratulations to you on that.
Yeah. Thank you guys so much. And thanks to everybody, that's a part of it. I just, somebody tweeted yesterday, I love to hear Coach Brost talk hoops. This is a person that I've never met before, never seen or, really met at any level. And so I appreciate, all of, like you guys, and I appreciate the person that tweeted yesterday, and I appreciate all of the people. I appreciate the guy who emailed me 2 days ago about man left with questions about that. So it's all encompassing, right? And it's constant. I talk about that all the time with my assistants. It's constant. There's always something that you need to address or something that's going on. And I think that's a good thing, right? Because people respect you enough to ask you your opinion, number one. And then number two, they value it enough to a lot of times do what you ask them or what you suggest to them. And so, I'm thankful for all of those folks as well that have trusted me, not only with their kids, but, with their programs and people that call and people I get on phone calls with. And, we're talking hoops for sometimes a half hour, sometimes an hour, all of those people. And I think you guys, this platform has been, a refreshing part of me growing as a coach. And I appreciate you guys having me on as much as you do. And I look forward to continuing this, the whole thing here.
To me, it just speaks to, again, the basketball community and what it's all about, and the willingness of all of us to share what we know and try to make the game better because we just simply love the game of basketball. And that's something that I always say that I knew that prior to starting the podcast, but after doing this thing for what are we going on 7 years, Jay? Almost 7 years.
It'll be 7 in June, right?
So we're 6.5 years or whatever. And I feel even more strongly about how just tight-knit and willing to share and just the love for the game that the basketball community has. And certainly you and this particular set of episodes is just a great way for us to be able to give back and share and give you an opportunity to speak to people that are a part of our audience and share what you've been able to do in the game and hopefully help them to make their programs, their teams, their experience in the game better. Then that's really what it's all about. So on that note, we'll move from the Hall of Fame discussion to topic number 2, which is more along the lines of Rob sharing his knowledge. And so the question or the topic that I threw at him was, at the end of a practice, if you're trying to end on a positive note, you're trying to get the team out sort of on that high, what's an activity, a drill, something that you go to? Could be a team building activity. It could be anything. I kind of left it open-ended of what do you do if you want to kind of end practice on a high note with your team? And I don't know if the question fit directly with anything that you do, but I'm curious to see what I think
he's going to say half-court knockout. That's what he's totally going to say right now.
I wish. I mean,
Rob throws he throws a $10 bill down at half court and has everybody firing away until somebody wins the 10.
That's my summer camp trick, Mike. That's my summer camp trick where I put the $10 bill. So, but to get to your question, I think first off, let me just be clear. I think all of practice is important. I don't necessarily think a certain part of practice is more important or less important than the other. I also don't necessarily think you have to end on something that's always spectacular or always great, right? My philosophy has kind of changed on that. My practices are now not as crisp as they were 15 years ago, and that might confuse some people. I think our practices are more choppy. I think they're uglier, so to speak, and it's kind of like a game. We do something for a while, we do it really hard, and then we kind of have a timeout, and we get water, and we kind of reset, and then we go and do it again. And so, like today, I thought we had a really good practice overall. But we ended with some competition shooting today, for example. And so, that gets competitive, but it's also fun. There's some, good-hearted trash talking going on between your teams. And I like that. And I think that's good. Whatever can bring energy to your practice, I think is good. And I think having fun with your guys is an enormous part of it. I think it's much more important now than I thought it was when I first started, right? I think, as practice is going on, I'll go around as practice is happening, like, hey, what's with so-and-so today? You see him blow that layup, and, just in good-hearted fun, so I want to make sure that they're free, so to speak, and mostly in their mind, free to just be at practice, right? And it's not so serious that every little thing is being hounded upon, right? And so I want them to be comfortable, not only in practice, but mostly comfortable talking to me about anything. Obviously not during practice, but I want them to be comfortable, and I want them to know that this thing that we're doing, although really important and we want to win, it's not as important as a lot of other things. And so I think there's a holistic approach to the whole thing, right? And so that's how I try to look at it. So I don't know if we do anything specific, but like today, I just turned to my assistants. I didn't even have it on hey, let's end with some competition shooting and let's get going with it. And we put 5 minutes on the clock and did various competitive things, some from the three. And Jason brought up the half court. We were shooting from the volleyball line as one of the spots. So, I mean, that's a spot that we would rarely shoot from in the game. And so,
do you participate in any of these drills, Rob?
I mean,
your basketball.
Jason, I don't know if you know this, but I'm fat, bald, although the bald doesn't really have to do with anything, and really out of shape. So, I might get in and shoot a free throw or something like that, but I can't even get in the shooting contest because there's a reason why those AED machines are all throughout the gym, and I don't want to be the reason why that is there. So,
okay.
So back to the question, we don't do anything specific like every single day to end on a positive note. I think the way our practice flows, and I always talk to them as a group before practice, and then I talk to them as a group after practice is over, and then and it just depends on how I feel. So the end of practice is just us talking every time. Even today, after everybody was running around the gym when they won, and one group is doing 5 push-ups, another group is running around like they won the national championship. Those are healthy things to me. When kids are having fun, when kids are like, oh, and then another kid saying, well, you only did 4 of your 5 push-ups, just goofy things like that. And I think those are important snippets of time that are important. And I think you really got to be confident in yourself as a coach to allow those things to happen and allow those things to continue to happen, because that's why kids play. And, obviously they want to win, and obviously it's competitive, and obviously we have a job to do. I get all of that. But I've realized as my career has moved on that the having fun part of it is an enormous piece of it. And so we have to add that to it as well. And, sometimes I think coaches can take that too far. I like to think that we don't take it too far. But, it's just a feel thing. And I've talked about that on this show many times. I just go off of feel almost all the time now. Like, what do I think we need? And then I'll change the practice plan. I'll throw it out. We'll go to something else. And so I don't know if that helped you at all with the question at hand, but that's just kind of how we do it.
Well, so you're talking about A, fun, B, energy, I think are the two things that, from what you just said, that come through to me in terms of practice. So if you can keep the energy level high and you can keep the fun level, being balanced with, obviously, as you said, working hard and making sure that you're doing what needs to be done, you can have all of those things in your practice setting. And therefore, you're going to come out of practice getting what you need from that particular practice session. When it comes to like the banter back and forth with players, like, hey, man, did you check out Steve missed that layup or whatever it might be?
Yeah.
Was there a point where, did you start out your career having that kind of banter with kids?
No.
Or at what point did you sort of change over? Because the thing that, so I'm going to give you a story from just back, again, this is back from when I was playing. And so when I was at Kent with Coach McDonald, this is a story that I always tell to people when they ask me, like, what were your practices like? And I say, well, they were very, very serious. There was very little, you could generate your own fun because you were playing or you were at practice, whatever, but there was no fun necessarily being built into the practice. And I remember one time we were at practice, Rob, and one of my teammates planted, I think we were doing some kind of 4-on-4 drill or something. Maybe we were in shell, and planted his foot and his shoe ripped. Like the insole. No, it was not Zion, but it was a similar theory to that. And it made this incredibly loud, what sounded like a farting noise. And everybody stopped because, this thing was like, his shoe ripped. It made this huge, like the stitching ripped, and it just sounded like somebody had cut a huge fart. And everybody in the gym, like, it was funny. Like, everybody should have been like doubled over in laughter. And everybody just turned and looked at Coach McDonald to see what he was going to do. And he was just sitting there and he was like stone-faced.
Yeah.
And everybody else just kind of looked at each other, stifled whatever laugh they were going to have. The kid whose shoe ripped apart went off to the sideline. They subbed somebody in for him, and boom, practice started. So that was kind of the environment that I practiced in all the time. And you look at that, you're like, man, that's crazy. And then at the same time, Kevin Mackey, who was the coach at Cleveland State back when I was in high school, and then when I was in college, I would go down to play at their open gym sometimes, and his players would make a shot, and then he'd be standing on the sideline, and they'd literally turn and swear at it, like, how do you like that? MFer and this and that, and I'm like, well, like, I can't even laugh at this thing. And here are these guys going back and forth with this. It was such a dichotomy of how you can run a practice. And obviously both guys were successful in different ways and whatever. And there's more than one way to skin a cat. But when I think about that banter back and forth with players, it's one of those things that I think you have to find your comfort zone is the way I look at it.
And I think it's a comfort level with the coach, and you have to be yourself, right? And so kids understand if you're being authentic with them. And if that authenticness, for lack of a better term, is being tough and hard-nosed, and that's you, then that's what you should be. And if, in my case, I don't say a whole lot at practice anymore. I correct effort things. Of course, I correct some technique things, and, my philosophy is over the whole program. I get all that, but, I'm my philosophy with all that has completely changed in the last 10 or 15 years, and where I wanted control of everything before, and I wanted everything to be exactly a certain way and done a certain thing. And now I'm almost the exact opposite of that. And so it's allowed our players some freedom, and we've lost some games because of it. But it's just more my personality, right? I think when I first started, I would go to a college practice, and then I would try to be like X coach. And then I would go to another college practice, and then I would try to be like X coach the next day, the next week. And so, that's not really conducive to who I am. And, people hear me talking, well, it's easy to be who you are if you've won 400 games and you're in the Hall of Fame and you can do whatever you want. Well, no, that it's the exact opposite is true, because you have to, continue to do things the right way, right? And the right way is different for different people. And so the way I do things certainly wouldn't work if I was at a different school per se. But I know our guys, and I've known them for a long, long time. Most of them have been coming to our camp for years at a time. And so particularly our best players, have been in our, area since they were little. So it's good. And I've had their brother, and I've had their older brother. And so, it's fun that way, and they know what to expect. And, I know them, and they kind of know me. So that is all helpful for sure.
And part of that is growing into yourself, right? And getting an understanding of who you are. Obviously, when you're a young coach, a lot of your influences are coaches who you played for, or coaches that you played under. And then as you gain more experience and you go to a college practice, you obviously can't be that coach. Maybe you steal one thing or one particular part of it that you can combine into your personality and use it in such a way. But I do think that it takes time for you to discover who you are, and not just, we're all copycats to some degree, but the thing is, you're not a copycat of one person. You're a copycat of, I take things from 25 people, or I take things from 30 people, or however many you want, whatever number you want to throw out there. And then eventually you become comfortable in your own skin, and then you figure out, okay, how can I apply all the things I've learned, take what I need, throw out what I don't need. And now this is who Rob Brost is as a coach, as opposed to this is a bunch of little things that I've just stolen from other people and tried to make a kaleidoscope of coaching. So I do think that that's a process that you grow into. And I think it's something that if you have the mindset of continually learning and wanting to improve and get better, and putting yourself in situations where you're around other great coaches and where you can grow and learn. Like I think about you with the opportunities that you've had with USA Basketball, and just the minds that you've been able to connect with there, and the things that you get to see, and that there's no way that can't help you to grow and become better. And then now that you've had yourself established, you can take those things and incorporate them into who you already are as a coach, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. And I think about this because every time I get back from a USA Basketball thing, someone asks me, well, what'd you learn? What X's and O thing did you learn? We're not reinventing basketball here. More I learn is the nuances of how to, connect with players and how to pull a kid off to the side and kind of connect with him and like, hey man, instead of shooting that three, maybe take it to the hoop next time. Just little things like that, how people interact. And, when you see guys like Sharman White, who has multiple gold medals and, double-digit state titles, he's not reinventing the wheel, but he has a way of connecting with his players. And that's what really differentiates him from everybody else. And people think it's some big, and he's great at X's and O's. Don't get me wrong. I think he's awesome. But the way that he can connect with players, and not only players, but with people in general, is what sets him kind of apart. And, so if you can glean a thing or two from people like that, that I think is great. And that's the best part about experiences like USA Basketball.
Coaches, Game Changer is making your game film more valuable than ever. New this season to Game Changer, Film Room allows team staff to analyze full game videos, add comments to specific moments, and quickly share feedback with other coaches, team members, or families. The #1 youth sports app automatically skips downtime in the game film, condensing event video into active play so you can focus on the moments that matter. The best part? It's completely free for coaches. Download Game Changer now on iOS or Android and take your coaching to the next level with Film Room on Game Changer. Game Changer. Stream, score, connect. Topic number 3. Keys to putting together a great scouting report. And whenever I think of a scouting report, I kind of think of it in 2 pieces. I think of what is important for you to know as a coach as you're preparing to play an opponent. And then to go along with that, how much of what you want to know as a coach is worth passing along to your players so that they can utilize it and not feel overwhelmed. Because I think no matter what level of basketball you're talking about, it's very, very easy to give players too much information that is either irrelevant to them, meaning they're never going to be able to apply it, or you give them so much that they get confused and what they really need ends up getting lost in a larger message. So I guess the question is twofold.
Yeah.
1, what do you want to know about an opponent? And then 2, what do you think it's important for your team individually to know about your opponent?
Yeah, I think, again, this is just how we do it. And I don't ever want to come across like this is how everybody should do it. But I have one assistant who handles all the scouts, and he is tedious would be a massive understatement of how he is. And he handles every scout for a reason because he likes it and he loves to break down film and all of those things. So basically what I want to know is, from a scoring standpoint, when we're playing another opponent, who is scoring and where they're scoring from. The top 3 of those things. So who are their top 3 scorers and where do those top 3 scorers score from? That's what I want to know. And then also the top 3 actions or sets that they run and the top 3 inbounds unders that they run. And once we have those things figured out, or my assistant has those things figured out, he'll send me, a bunch of clips. And then I'll say, you need to get this down to X amount of clips to show the team. So like tomorrow is the day before a game. So tomorrow we'll go over who the top 3 scorers are, where they score from, and their top 3 actions and their top 3 out of bounds unders on film first. And then we'll go on the court and do those or defend against those. Right. And so that's as far as we go. Now, obviously, he has tendencies and individualized things on their top 6 or 7 players, usually. Just tendencies. Hey, if you're guarding number 15, he likes to reverse pivot and come back to the right all the time. If he's driving left, he's going to reverse pivot and come back right most of the time. Tendencies like that. And so there's a moniker of that, but we don't give our players, and coaches are think I'm crazy. We don't give our players anything on paper, nothing. We don't give them a sheet. We don't give them, all the tendencies written down, nothing. We watch film, probably 10 to 15 clips max, but those are clipped, right? So they're quick. And then we go over those tendencies, and then on the floor, after we do our stuff, we go through those things on the floor for about 20 or 30 minutes. And so, obviously a lot of times we're preparing for teams like today. We did a bunch of stuff in the full court that the team that we're playing Friday does, but we didn't tell our guys, like, hey, this is what the team we're playing Friday does. We just, run offense against the defense that they do. Like today, we went against a lot of box and one because I'm anticipating on Friday they're going to throw some junk D at us because, we have one guy that's averaging 25 and we got another guy that's averaging 20. Then after that, we don't have anybody over, double digits. And so, I'm anticipating that. They ran that, a couple games ago against another team that's similar to ours. So we're preparing all the time, but for the specific scout, it is dependent on A, who we're playing, and then B, what my assistant gives me initially. And usually it's a lot. I mean, he'll give me the last 4 or 5 game shot charts. He'll give me the last 4 or 5 games. And then I tell him to pare that down to 10 clips. And sometimes he's not really happy with me about that, but we'll pare it down to 10 clips. And then I'll tell him, you have 15 minutes of film and you got 15 minutes on the court. And so we just want our guys to be familiar with, but not fixated on, if that makes sense, the team that we're playing. But we've prepared so much to defend certain sets anyways that we just say we're going to guard this like we normally guard. We're going to, ice this when 23 has the ball, and we're going to hedge this when, 32 has the ball, or whatever it is. So we don't do a ton of in-depth scouting. My assistant does a ton. And then, as the game's going, he'll be like, Coach, if we need to foul, we got to foul. So he has all of that, down, but we haven't gone over with our guys, like who we would foul, where, all that. That's just for us. So we're way more prepared than our players, I guess, if that makes sense. But our players have just enough to, play, but play comfortably. And again, I just go on feel on that. That's just how we do it.
What does it look like on the practice floor when, let's say you are going to go against, maybe you're anticipating a box and one?
Yeah.
Do you take a second group and quickly try to teach them the box and one?
So here's what, like tomorrow, for example, when we go out for practice, and it happened a little bit today too, my coach that does all the scouts, will take 5 of the guys on a side court and start going over their stuff while we review our stuff, right? Our specials, our things, all of our stuff. And then that's 10 to 15 minutes. And then when they are ready, then they come over and run their stuff against us, and their defense against us and their offense against us. And again, part of that evolves throughout the week, depending on how many days we have to prepare. But a lot of days, like in big shootouts, like last week, we played Friday night, and then we played in the Chicago Elite Classic, where we're playing a top team in the country the next day. So we didn't really have time to do that. So we came in early, watched the 15 clips, walked through, 10 minutes on the court, and then we played. And so that's what I'm talking about. We want our kids to be prepared, but not paralyzed by the preparation.
Those five kids that go off the side court, are they like not your starters? Are they? Or
correct. Yeah, those are guys that wouldn't normally get playing time if we were in a tight game. Luckily, knock on wood, we've been able to play all of our guys in several of our games so far this year, which is a good thing. And we've been in 3 or 4 close games already as well. So, normally those scout guys are guys that wouldn't typically play a lot or at all if we were in a close game.
Yeah. Is there one of those guys that loves to shoot and gets to be the top scorer on the other team? And every team has one of those guys that loves. He's like, all right, I'm the number one scorer.
You are Jordan Clarkson. You are Jordan Clarkson.
Some guys will even come ahead of 2 or 3 games ahead. Like, hey, can I be so and so? Because they know he shoots like every ball for the other team. Can I be so and so on Thursday? And so, because like I'll say, if we're doing a scout, like I'll say, when you catch it from 3, when you catch it, you can shoot a 3 at any time, and if it hits the rim, we're counting it. So like that's how tough we're guarding the shoot, stuff like that. So guys will anticipate that sometimes and be like, hey, can I be so-and-so? So-and-so is the best player. But you have to have at least some of the physical characteristics of that player. You can't be like,
can't be like Rob Brost pretending to be LeBron James.
Yes, exactly that. That's a great analogy. Jason, I'm glad you came for this show. So it's a perfect analogy. Yes, you got to have at least some of the traits. Obviously, another team's best player.
LeBron is balding, so at least you do have that.
That's it. Yes. But I do not spend near as much money on my body as him, and it shows.
All right, let me ask you this.
Yep.
So in the order of something, I don't know if it's funny, but tell me about a scout that went wrong. Can you think back to a time in your career where you had something scouted and you thought you had it all figured out, and then the game went the opposite direction, or a kid that you thought, this kid's never going to score anything, and all of a sudden that kid has a career game?
DeAndre Hunter,
this is a good example, and it ended up in our favor, so it's a great story itself because it ended up being okay. We were playing an undefeated team last year at their place. They were like 22-0, and we were something and 2 or something like that. And I said to our guys, if this kid beats us from 3, I will raise my hand at the end of the game and be like, hey, this was a terrible scout, whatever. Well, we come out, the kid goes 6 for 7 in the first quarter from 3. And, we're down, of course. We're down 23 to 11 or something like that. And everyone's just like, what are we doing? And we stuck with it. And the best thing that happened to us was that he went 6 for 7 from 3 in the first half. And so we just stayed with it, and we ended up beating them and winning pretty handily. But I mean,
how
at the end of the
did he
first
make
quarter,
the whole game? 6?
I don't know. I think he had a couple in the second half as well. So maybe 8, but he kept firing. And I mean, he got us back into the game. And so, he's a really good player. And our point was like, if he gets to the lane, then he's really going to carve us up. And so, you have never, and it was allowed. Jim sold out, of course. I mean, even our players were like, Coach, do you think, we should probably go to something else? And we didn't. We just stuck with it, and it ended up being okay, mostly because we have really good players, and, we kind of got back in the game, and then he missed a few, but it did not start out well at all, and it didn't look good. But at the end of the day, it turned out okay.
Scouting is always an inexact science. There's always outliers that come in and you're like, what? Where did I haven't seen this kid make a 3, or I haven't seen this kid put the ball on the floor and go left ever. And suddenly the first 6 plays of the game, 5 of them are left-handed drives for layups.
Right. That's exactly
it's inevitable.
Right.
It is inevitable that happens. So
no doubt.
All right. Well, that finishes up topic number 3. So Rob, again, before we wrap up, I just want to say congratulations to you on the election to the Illinois Basketball Coaches Hall of Fame. A tremendous honor for you. And again, we're thrilled that you want to come on and share your knowledge with us. And it's always a pleasure to do these episodes. It's a lot of fun. And I know that you and I have traded texts before, but the friendship that you and I have been able to develop over the course of starting out doing a podcast way back when for our very first one. And, here we are now after having done, I don't even know, probably we're up to 17 or 18, but this is the 15th triple double. And it's one of those things that you just can't measure again, what the basketball community, means out here, and just the ability through this silly podcast for you and I to develop
No
a
doubt.
friendship, and for Jason and I to be able to have someone of your caliber as a high school coach to come on and share your knowledge has just been
I
tremendous.
appreciate
So again,
this might sound a little sappy, but it's true. I wouldn't be who I am without you guys. And so it sounds like, I'm putting a little more levity to it than maybe there should be, but I truly believe that, right? And not only with you guys, but like my players, my admin, all of that. I wouldn't be who I am, and I couldn't, be who I am without you guys. And so you guys have been a tremendous, influence, and I just appreciate both you guys on a personal level as well as a professional level. So thank you guys for everything you guys do. And
It's really
thank
kind of
you
you to say that after the analogy
Well,
I just made. I appreciate that.
Jason, I really want to thank you for actually being on several of the episodes in a row after like a two episode hiatus there for a while. So I think that's great, and we're really moving it forward. So thank you guys. In all seriousness, thank you both of you as well. So I really appreciate you guys.
well, we are rolling on, and the next time we talk, it will be 2025. Hard to believe, but that will be triple double number 16. So again, thanks to Rob, thanks to Jason, and thanks to all of you out there for listening, and we will catch you on our next episode. Thanks. Your first impression is everything when applying for a new coaching job. A professional coaching portfolio is the tool that highlights your coaching achievements and philosophies, and most of all, helps separate you and your abilities from the other applicants. The Coaching Portfolio Guide is an instructional, membership-based website that helps you develop a personalized portfolio. Each section of the Portfolio Guide provides detailed instructions on how to organize your portfolio in a professional manner. The guide also provides sample documents for each section of your portfolio that you can copy, modify, and add to your personal portfolio. As a Hoopheads Pod listener, you can get your Coaching Portfolio Guide for just $25. Visit coachingportfolioguide.com/hoopheads to learn more.
Thanks for listening to the Hoop Heads podcast, presented by Head Start Basketball.